What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Team Betrade Podcast. My name is Eric.
My name is Tom.
My name is Zach.
My name is James.
And we would like to introduce the first ever guest here on the Team Betrade Podcast, our friend Rob.
What's going on, everybody?
So, Rob is here with us to help us break down the NFL stories that have happened in the last 2 weeks, as well as break down the MLB postseason predictions that we're going to have at the very end of the show. So really glad to have you here, buddy. Gonna start off here with the NFL stories, and what a crazy last 2 weeks it has been. Week 2 didn't have a whole lot of upset scene, but it did kind of show you exactly what some teams really had going on. Last week, however, I have absolutely no idea what in the hell happened. Stories that I picked up on personally. Going back, starting at week 2 and kind of going on to tonight, I do want to preface this by saying that we're recording this during the Dallas Cowboys-Arizona Cardinals game due to the timing for the rest of us. So we don't have a whole lot of analysis on that game at all. But last week was an absolute disaster for the Dallas Cowboys. You know, when the preseason began, the two teams that everybody kind of had pegged to really take on the Atlanta Falcons, outside of Green Bay obviously, was the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. And through the first 3 weeks for Seattle and first 2 weeks for Dallas, I haven't seen where either one of them have any chance at contending for the NFC spot in the Super Bowl right now. Seattle Seahawks cannot get it going on offense. They got it going at the end of the game last week against the Titans, but they looked pedestrian for the first 2 weeks against Green Bay and against the San Francisco 49ers, which I think is a disaster in itself. And they got going so far late, the Titans had blew up supposedly one of the top defenses in the league. Dallas, kind of struggled to beat a Giants team that has not performed to expectations, and then got blown out by Denver, who then got blown out by the Bills. I don't see where either one of these two teams is in any way, shape, or form the Super Bowl caliber team we thought they would be.
Yeah, to kind of bounce off your point, Eric, Dallas is actually not playing that well right now. I got the Gamecast pulled up while the podcast is going on. They're not playing too hot, and the main reason is because their defense went really, really downhill during the offseason. They had a good core secondary, and their secondary got really, really young for this year. And you're definitely seeing that a veteran like Carson Palmer is currently picking them apart right now. I don't think he's had an incomplete pass yet at the time we were recording this. So and also you have two young guys who blew up last year, in Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. It's hard to live up to the expectations of going 13-3, losing a heartbreaker against the Packers in the playoffs with all that hype around you. Like, this is the year that these two rookies are going to lead the Cowboys into the promised land. Then they get it's really tough to lose like that. And coming back this year with all this hype and starting the season out like they did, the defense is letting them down, and Dak obviously isn't performing at the elite level that everyone thought he was going to come back and perform at. And Ezekiel Elliott has some lack of effort issues, which has never happened before since he's joined the league. So they're looking pretty pedestrian right now.
So just to kind of reiterate what you just said, obviously, Dak Prescott and Zeke were obviously new and upcoming, and, obviously the teams didn't know how to prepare for them, and clearly in the offseason, OTAs, whatever, you can prepare for them because they were such essentially, threats last season. So obviously you can prepare the upcoming season, which I think is literally what is happening to them. And, it's just getting the best of them. And I think that obviously the defenses are preparing for the O-line and the strength, I guess, if you want to put it that way, of the Cowboys. Clearly they're not holding their blocks as well. Clearly they're collapsing a lot more, and they're just breaking down at the end of the day.
And also, I kind of forgot to mention you also mentioned the Seahawks, Eric. In that time, and honestly, I think the Seahawks are all right. Whenever you ever play a player like Russell Wilson, you're always going to be able to win games, you know. So I think the Seahawks are absolutely fine. They still have one of the better defenses in the entire league. Not the time to hit the panic button if you're a Seahawks fan for sure, but if the Cowboys lose tonight like they lost last week or in a similar fashion, doesn't have to be a blowout again, you start to look at the Cowboys and say, hey, this team is looking average again. And that's a shame for Cowboys fans who had all that hype around the 13-3 team.
I think the issue with the Cowboys and the Seahawks are almost completely opposite of each other. The issue with the Seahawks is that they don't have an offensive line to speak of. A bunch of makeshift guys trying to play. And they're not going to protect Russell Wilson. There's been a lot of highlight reel type plays, low light reels, depending on how you're looking at it, where their offensive line just looks absolutely pathetic. And the Cowboys' main issue is that they do not have a defense to speak of. They have one or two good players in that defense, and that they just can't be carried by one or two guys. You have to have good guys at every single level, and they just don't have it.
So, to go about the Cowboys defense, I mean, I agree with you. You know, they only have like one or two guys, maybe three at best. And obviously, I think last year's defense and partially this year's is still better than the defense that they've had in maybe in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons. So, I mean, it's clearly gone up, but just by a little, you know. And then the Seahawks, they've just kind of slowly imploded, I think. You know, they haven't fully fallen off, but I mean, it's kind of there, you know, seeing Russell Wilson struggle and you know, struggling, like staying in the pocket, and you know, he's always having to make plays mostly on his own. And I mean, their defense just isn't the Legion of Boom anymore, I feel.
So, Dallas, their problem is they're so predictable now. They know they're going to run the ball. They have a shitty defense. They're going to get exposed every play. They have no defensive line. The cornerbacks are young. The ball every play? No, you can't do that in NFL. You have to expose the weakness of the opposing defense. It's not going to work. They have to mix up their play calls. And you look at Seattle, like Zach said, no offensive line. It's the Titans, top rusher, 30 yards. Games like that. You can't have to protect Russell Wilson, have to protect the run game to get the ball going and score touchdowns. To say.
I want to add something too to Tom's point before I continue on to my second point, second story here. The biggest problem with the Cowboys is in their secondary. They didn't have a good secondary to begin with last year, and then they lost their top 2 cornerbacks to free agency. You can build in the draft, but the one thing that we've seen with young cornerbacks, especially first and second years, is they're usually not good their first and second year. So the secondary is killing the Cowboys. The front 7 can't carry the load, and the Denver Broncos showed where they picked them apart. The other problem on the offense is like James said, they've gotten predictable. You know, you shut down, all you have to do is pause Ezekiel Elliott, and you can beat them. Dak Prescott hasn't had to put that team on his shoulder. Not saying that he can't, but he hasn't had to yet. So he hasn't developed really the ability to. He has to work on that. He has to get that under control, or else I don't think Dallas can win a Super Bowl under him right now. As far as Seattle goes, you know, the first 2 games, even against Aaron Rodgers, that defense looked good, but not this Legion of Boom that everyone expected or that they've had in the last few seasons. The secondary's there, but that front 7 didn't seem to have the pass rush that it usually has. It didn't stop DeMarco Murray or Derrick Henry for that matter. You know, and I picked, you know, when we did our predictions, I picked the Titans to go 13-3, and I picked them to beat Seattle as an upset. But the way the 2 teams have played, I don't know if that game was really an upset when it comes right down to it. So my second point that I wanted to bring up here was this past week has been absolutely riddled with upsets. From upsets as far as I think I saw 5 games had a 90% chance of winning, and that chance was flipped to the other team in the last 2 minutes. So, what do you guys believe was the biggest upset of the weekend?
Oh man, there were so many, but I gotta go with the Bills beating the Broncos. It's just ridiculous to think that a Broncos team that just slaughtered the Cowboys last week. I know they were in Denver, but then you go to a Bills team that's average at best, and you lose by 10 points. It just doesn't add up. I think it really shows the inconsistency that the Broncos still have, even with that incredible defense. So I don't know. It was just an incredible thing. I saw that score, and that was the only score that really made my eyes go wide when I saw that. I'm like, really? They're losing to the Bills?
I think my biggest upset would have to be the Saints against the Panthers. Not to take anything away from Breeze. Breeze is awesome. He leads that offense into a top 10 category every single year. But just the Panthers, man, from what they were 2 years ago, they have fallen off immensely. I've never seen such a steep fall from a champion like that. And it's just crazy to me. The Saints just ran away with that game. It wasn't even close.
So looking back at the scores, I think I would say, I guess, an upset would be the Falcons versus the Lions, with the Falcons coming up top. I mean, overall, that game was just tremendous. Like, that had there's so many, moments where it was, oh, did this person score? Oh, no, his knee was down, or his elbow's down, whatever the case may be. Or, this guy stepped out of bounds. But I honestly thought the Lions were going to take it over the Falcons at the end of the day. And I'd say, I guess, the biggest jaw-dropping moment, I guess we can kind of open this up, was the Eagles-Giants ending, because not only was that a great catch to, put the Eagles in field goal position, but then have a rookie drill a 61-yarder?
Yeah, 61.
To win the game, and essentially, he made history because he was the first rookie to ever do that, and then he got carried off like he was Rudy, and that was just a good thing to see. And I honestly didn't think that the Eagles were going to win, so I mean, at the end of the day, it was great.
And to add to that really quickly before James goes, that 61-yard field goal was actually the longest game winner in regulation, from what I was reading this morning.
Oh wow,
Man, I can't even name player on Chicago's defense. And they upset the Steelers that has this high-power offense, Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger. Knee on offense, honestly, because they didn't get that W. And Chicago upset them. Now they're 1-2. Chicago.
So, I'm not gonna upset Zach by picking the London game that didn't happen, because I feel like that's an easy target. I am actually going to homer a little bit here, and I'm going to pick the Redskins over the Raiders. And not just because the Redskins beat the Raiders, which was not predicted by anyone except James last week. James last week. James did pick it last week when we did the primetime pick'ems at the end. James did pick the Redskins, and I'll be honest, me and Tom did not. But I thought we might, given the way the weekend went, I figured it was an opportunity. But the way we beat them, the way the defense absolutely shut down Oakland's offense, was astronomical to me. I have never watched a Redskin game. I've been a Redskin fan for 18 years. And I have never seen a game that had me that had me so pumped and hyped watching a Redskin game in my entire life. So I have to go the Redskins-Raiders.
Just a little correction. That field goal was tied for the longest in regulation with Justin Tucker in 2013 game winner last second against the Lions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just something I read on ESPN this morning, so ESPN's been wrong before.
So, going to the Skins game, obviously, being a Skins fan myself, I did not think that the Redskins were going to win. I knew it was going to be the Skins defense versus the Oakland offense. The Redskins offense versus the Oakland defense, I didn't think was going to perform at all. But obviously, I stand corrected just because the score was 27-10. I mean, again, Oakland, they are just nasty on offense. They have so many weapons. They're such a deep seven. And obviously the Skins defense has improved over the past, forever. And just this season alone, the Skins have just improved immensely on defense. But when it was all said and done, I felt like the Raiders were just going to take it all, mainly because I felt like Beast Mode was just going to just run all over everyone.
Yeah, and one last point, I want to say one thing that that ESPN article I read today said. This was probably the first big win that the Redskins have had in about 4 years. That was a complete game that didn't leave a question going, well, they won, but this person got injured. Or they won, but this person, didn't perform. Or they won, but this didn't happen right. This was the first time the Redskins have won in primetime where the entire game went, you know what? They killed that game. So, Tom, what stories for week 2 and 3 did you pick up on?
Well, we got two more, minus one game, but we got 2 more weeks of football in the books. That means it's time for some more overreactions. So, I got 3. So I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. You guys just give me one comment, say if it's an overreaction or not, and one reason why. And we'll just go around in order, okay?
Okay.
So, first overreaction. The Kansas City Chiefs have the AFC West on lockdown based on the last 2 weeks.
I'm going to say not an overreaction, just because I feel like they've been by far the most complete team. The Raiders didn't show up last night against the Redskins, who I thought they did overmatch, and I'm terrified for Monday night. I think you might be right there. I don't think it's an overreaction yet.
I don't think it's an overreaction yet. I think the Chiefs are the most well-rounded team in the NFL. That defense is just throttling, and that offense is just very, very, very effective. Alex Smith has finally pulled a trick out of his pocket, and it's called the long ball, and he's mastering it.
I second that. Just the Chiefs are just looking nasty. That's all I have to say.
I say it's a reaction. I think the Broncos are the strongest team in the AFC West. They have a stout defense. Simeon's a young quarterback still developing. Receivers and C.J. Anderson to take the weight off his shoulders when he needs it. Overreaction.
All right, moving on to the second one. This is among the best running back draft classes in the history of the league this year.
That's easily not an overreaction. I mean, it's been usually you'll see 1 or 2 running backs that burst onto the scene, but I've never seen a class where you've got 4 or 5 that are absolutely dominating the NFL. Fournette, Cook, Mixon, Kareem Hunt especially. Yeah, that's not an overreaction. This might be the best one we've seen in a very long time.
I don't think it's overreaction. I think they have a lot of body in the middle of them, like just throughout. It's very top heavy, but it also has a lot of body.
Yeah, it's not an overreaction by any means. This draft class, not only can they just run the ball for days, but they can just catch, run. Essentially, I feel like you could be looking at like the next, dual threat running back in the name of Brian Westbrook, but that's just me. And it could be anyone in that class for all that matters.
I don't think it's a overreaction. There's a lot of top heavy, like Zach said. There's a lot of people in the middle towards the bottom, but they get their chance on special teams and they have a chance to shine. They'll actually get a chance to show up in a few years from now and actually show what they're worth. So, nope.
All right, one final overreaction. This one's a little bit out there, so get ready. The Chargers and LA experiment has already failed, and the team will be out of LA within 5 years.
I'm gonna say overreaction for right now. I don't think the Chargers and LA experiment has failed because I mean, if you wanna take attendance, you can say the LA Rams experiment has failed. The only way to get people into seats is to win, and the Chargers are sitting at 0-3. It's another unlucky year for the Chargers. It's already starting off just like last year was. So the Rams are starting to win. We'll see if their winnings start putting seats in LA. But until they get their own stadium, you're not going to actually see what the attendance is going to be like in LA. I don't think the experiment has failed. I think that's a bit of an overreaction right now.
I don't think it's overreaction. I think San Diego's going to find themselves in limbo here in the next 2 or 3 years because San Diego never had a traveling fan base. They had a huge fan base and foothold in San Diego. It's a large military town. A lot of military folks would come in there and see the local football team and see San Diego succeed when they had Philip Rivers humming and LaDainian Tomlinson and Sean Merriman and all those guys, Eric Weddle. But just the past few years, they've just been kind of on the down skid. And Philip Rivers can't carry a team like he used to. And they're going to come into a situation where they're not going to have Philip Rivers and they're not going to have a home stadium. It's going to be very, very interesting.
I don't think it's overreaction. I mean, when you look at it, you know, from a business side, they just don't have the backing. You know, they were hardly ever talked about. You know, I mean, yeah, the NFL did talk about them moving, but they never talked about, you know, getting the fans to, I guess, support the teams, and you know what I mean, like. They just never had the backing to begin with, and I feel like they just kind of shot themselves in the foot temporarily. I mean, obviously they can come back from, I guess, the slumps that they're in, you know, especially from the past couple of years. You know, San Diego's not the same, I guess, powerhouse, if you will, from the last couple of seasons, especially when LT was there, like, you know, years ago. But, you know, in due time, I feel like they will get their fans for both teams. And again, like you said earlier, you know, until another team gets their own stadium, it's kind of hard to deal with. Because, you know, if you look back at the Raiders, it was when Randy Moss played on the Raiders. You know, I think they didn't even have their own stadium. I think they were just bouncing from arena to arena. If not, they were playing on like a D2 college field or something. Like, they didn't have that backing, and then look at them now. Now they have a huge fan base, and I think, obviously, you know, it shows.
Oh, it wasn't an overreaction. Chargers should have never made the move. They had a good place in San Diego. The stadium was relatively packed, even for that they weren't favored or they were like 2-5. Base. The only reason they moved was a get-rich-quick scheme by the NFL, and it didn't work out. And they're probably gonna, because they want to build a stadium and it's not gonna work and all that mumbo jumbo. So no overreaction.
All right.
I got one. I got one reaction. Do you guys think? Well, let me phrase it. Cincinnati Bengals are the least competitive team in the NFL.
I don't think they're the least competitive because they really took it to Green Bay and they really forced Aaron Rodgers to pull some magic out of his hat. But I can't take one game and say they're competitive. You know, it's the same basis I'm making for Seattle. I can't take one game and say, oh, Seattle got their offense fixed. I can't say, oh, the Redskins have a great defense because of one good game. You can't say that. So I don't think it's an overreaction because, quite frankly, I think the Jets are, and they managed to pull a win out of their tail. But not an overreaction, but overreaction, but it could become not an overreaction if they continue the trend.
I think this is not an overreaction at all. I honestly think the Bengals look like the most discombobulated team in the NFL right now. As you said, even the Jets managed to pull a win out. The Browns have looked decent, and even their losses, they lost only by 3 this past week. They were competitive enough with the Steelers, which is unlike previous times they played them. So, yeah, the Bengals just seem like they can't stop, shooting themselves in the foot. It's not fun to watch. Just as a fan of football, I don't like watching the Bengals on TV because it's just so frustrating to watch a team like that. I can't imagine what their fan base is going through.
If this question was presented at the beginning of the season, instead of 3 weeks in, I would have said the Jets easily were the worst. But obviously they pulled out a win, like everyone has said, and just the Bengals. Yesterday just scored their first touchdown in 3 weeks. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, yeah, they might be spitting fire like in their own organization, on the field, off the field, whatever. But I don't think it's a overreaction at all.
I don't think it's an overreaction. The Bengals aren't competitive anymore. Cleveland's looking way better than them. We'll find out this weekend, actually. Cleveland's going to get their first win of the season against the Bengals. I think the Bengals need to just get rid of Marvin Lewis.
I mainly presented that because Tony Romo broadcasted that game. He brought up a good point, how he's very, very good at just looking into the play and knowing what play's going to be called. He had a hard time to do it with Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is a wizard. But with Andy Dalton, he made a point that Andy Dalton had a lot of pass run options, and he would pick the run option into a stacked box multiple times. And Tony Romo just kind of seemed just indifferent about it. He just didn't understand it. And I can kind of tell that Andy Dalton looks dejected. The only guy on offense or on that whole team really that's really playing like they want it is Joe Mixon, which I find ironic because he was the last guy that anybody wanted to get in the draft because of his off-field issues.
I agree. I can see your point there. I think A.J. Green's playing pretty good too. But yeah, one receiver and one running back does not make a good team. So I can kind of see where you're going with that. Did you have any other stories for the NFL that you saw, Zach?
I hope the Ravens never go back to England.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, so you're saying it's not your cup of tea?
Not at all. Not at all. I tell you what, man. To add on least competitive, the Ravens offense looked like the least competitive team. I've never seen the Ravens play a worse game, I'll be honest with you. It looks like our defense was stunned at how bad our offense was, and they wanted to play along. So, whatever. Move on to next week. Steelers week.
Zach, not Zach, sorry. James, what stories did you have for this last 2 weeks?
I'm looking, since I'm a Patriots fan, I gotta go where our defense is just looking straight garbage, and it's amazingly, shockingly, I don't get it. Cornerbacks, they're doing worse than our old ones. We picked up some linemen in the draft, but we're still getting exposed on every freaking play.
Yeah, the Patriots just do not look as dominant as they've had in the past.
Yeah, but it's still the beginning of the season. That's why I'm hopeful. And the question.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep adding on.
I was gonna say I'm wondering how long the Patriots can continue to rely on Tom Brady to carry them this season. I feel like eventually they're gonna hit a wall using that strategy, and there's gonna come a time where Tom Brady makes that one mistake and they're gonna lose a few games in a row. But I don't know. Is Tom Brady good enough to carry a team? Besides Tom Brady, that team is pretty average. But Tom Brady is a god, so I don't know how far Tom Brady can carry that team by himself. We'll have to see. It'll be interesting to watch as the season goes on.
I agree. And my next point is the Rams. They're looking pretty dangerous against San Fran this past week. They had offense clicking on all cylinders. Todd Gurley went off. Sammy Watkins went off. Robert Woods went off. Showed up, had some good plays. They almost blew it at the end, but they made the plays when it counted, and they got that victory on the road. So I'm excited to see how the Rams show up the next couple of weeks.
I just want to say, Eric, I told you last year that Goff was actually a good quarterback, and you didn't agree with me. So just throwing that out there.
He's proven me wrong. He's definitely proven me wrong.
Fantasy points.
So Rob, real quick, so we can move on here to the next step here. Did you have any real quick stories you wanted to add?
Not any that I can think of really that stood out.
So real quick, moving on to the next little thing, I something that I read on there on ESPN. What division, either NFC or AFC, do you believe is the most intriguing right now? Not which division is the best, but which division is the most intriguing? Which divisional race are you most inclined to watch this coming season, from what you've seen so far?
All right, I'm going to take the low road, and I'm going to go with the NFC East. Here, everyone thought the Giants were going to come out and have one of the best defenses in the league. They added a lot of weapons for Eli, and Eli has just been really underperforming to the point where his coach is actually criticizing him. I don't agree with that, by the way, that you shouldn't criticize your veteran quarterback like that in the public forum. You need to go to him first, because that's how you work out problems in the NFL. That's just going to create more frustration in the locker room, in my opinion, but that's a different story. The division as a whole is kind of crazy right now. The Cowboys don't look like they're going to run away with it at this point because their defense got worse. The Giants are 0-3 and not looking good besides Odell Beckham, and they got to figure out a way to get someone who's not named Odell Beckham Jr. To get them some points, or it's going to be a long season for them. But yeah, this division is pretty crazy right now. I don't think that anyone really expected the NFC East to be a really exciting division, but we're going to see, I think, a three-horse race, and I honestly believe that the NFC East can have two teams go to the playoffs this year.
All right, so for me, I feel the most intriguing is the AFC West. Not just because, the Chiefs are 3-0 for that matter, but, when you look at the AFC West, there's the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Chargers. The Chargers have kind of fallen off over the past couple of years. Phillip Rivers has done all he can. Oakland Raiders have pretty much been non-existent for ever in a decade, and they've just been coming up the past 2-3 seasons, if that. The Broncos, they basically, I feel like they were revitalized once Peyton Manning came in, and then they've kind of ridden that high road, no pun intended, for the Mile High City. But I feel like they've kind of rode that, especially on their defense. And then, the Chiefs, I feel like they're just coming in for full circle with their offense and their defense. They're just performing phenomenally, and I feel like when it comes to the playoff race, I feel like 2 if not 3 teams will make it, kind of like back in the day when the NFC East used to have 2 and 3 teams, or the AFC North with the Steelers, Ravens. So my division is the AFC West.
So my division is the NFC North. You have at top, tied for first, 3 teams: Vikings, Detroit, Green Bay. All good offenses, all led by good quarterbacks. They have some great defenses like the Vikings and Detroit. Green Bay doesn't have the best defense, but they could get wins out of it. They're 1-2, but they just got a win against a contender in Pittsburgh. Have to catch up to the rest. So that division is interesting. It's going to stay tight all year. It's definitely could get out of it if the cards are played right. So yeah, NFC North is looking pretty stout.
I'd have to pick the NFC West. About 4 years ago, this used to be probably the premier division in football, and now you have the Rams leading it, the Cardinals trying to take one from the Cowboys tonight, you have the Seahawks reeling, and you have the 49ers, who are one of the worst teams in the league. So I just want to see that that sponge fight down there. I can't wait to see it.
So I'm actually going to agree with Tom here. I'm more intrigued with the NFC East, and not just because the Redskins are in it. I'm picking the NFC East because when the season started, if you remember, I had the Giants winning 10-6 and the Eagles finishing last at 7-9. And it looks like my division has been flipped upside down with the exception of the Cowboys and the Redskins. The Redskins, like I said at the beginning, I have never seen a more exciting game for the Redskins, and if they can continue that defensive drive, we might have something here. The Eagles are looking like they're a year ahead of what they should be. The Cowboys are not looking like they did last year, and the Giants have an offense that can break through. If the Redskins and the Eagles fall back towards what you're expecting them to be, the Giants could still take advantage of it. 0-3 does not ruin the Giants' season as much as ESPN thinks they will. So I'm intrigued by the NFC East. I'm still going to be watching the NFC East, and this is definitely going to be the division to watch for in the NFC. Everyone else seems like, the NFC North, you knew they were going to be dominant. The NFC West is surprising. NFC South is not surprising to me whatsoever. That division's going exactly as I thought it would, so the NFC East is definitely where I'm looking at. So, going on to listeners' questions, I really only have one here that I want to use. It was actually a question that Zach and James's cousin Jeremy sent me. He asked us, and in the last podcast, and then texted Zach it, and he sent it to me. If the season ended right now, who do you think would be in your Super Bowl? Not necessarily based on talent, but simply based on execution. Who is playing in the Super Bowl if it started right now? Not based on record, but execution solely.
Yeah. Based on execution so far this season, I think it's once again going the low road here. Not going to take a risky pick or or anything like that. I'm just going to go with the Falcons versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Like I think Zach said earlier in this podcast, the Chiefs are the most well-rounded team in the NFL. It's just insane that they keep finding weapons coming out of the woodwork. Like, you don't expect Kareem Hunt coming out of nowhere to be one of the better halfbacks in the league. Tyreek Hill is a speed demon. Alex Smith is playing like Alex Smith used to play. Chiefs got it all going right now, and it's really fun to watch. So they're probably the best team in the NFL right now, if we're taking after week 3. And the Falcons look like they just picked up right where they left off, which is surprising because usually you expect a little more hangover, especially after the way things went down during the Super Bowl last year. Yeah, but the Falcons seem to have come out swinging this year, and I don't know. I think the Falcons are playing well. They added weapons. They didn't lose anybody. They still got the best wide receiver in the NFL, Julio Jones, and I honestly think Falcons Chiefs should be a really, really fun Super Bowl to watch. Offense versus defense.
I think if the season ended today, it'd probably be the Vikings and the Chiefs. I just can't trust the Falcons defense, and the Vikings defense plays the lights out. They have 3 legitimate shutdown corners, and they have a great safety tandem. And their offense, I don't understand what it is. I don't know if it's the scheme or whatever, but Sam Bradford and Case Keenum have that offense going every single week. And Stephon Diggs is making a good case to be a top 10, maybe even top 5 NFL wide receiver.
My Super Bowl pick, if the season ended this week, would be the Chiefs and arguably the Packers over the Falcons, solely because the Packers defense, they've looked pretty stout so far, and I mean you cannot count out Mr. Hail Mary himself, Aaron Rodgers. Like, he can just lead an offense, receivers, no receivers, what have you. The Packers, I mean, they've kind of fallen off their, I guess, well-oiled machine over the past couple seasons, but I feel like they can easily be a Super Bowl contender at the end of the day.
My picks right now, based on execution and what I see from teams playing, mine have to be the Patriots, obviously. Pick the Rams. I like Sean McVay. Offense. I like their defense. They have great chemistry. If they can stay healthy, they're going to be a contender at the end of the year, and they're going to give the Falcons a run for their money in the NFC Championship. Hot take that.
Yeah, that's a hot take. The Rams, huh? Whew, alrighty. Well,
So hot you can make it to the garbage.
Well, so
Where's my bar soap?
So I am gonna have to agree with Zach here, and I can't believe. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Zach here. I think it's gonna be the Chiefs and the Vikings. The reason that I'm obviously the Chiefs, we pretty much all picked them just about, but the reason that I'm picking the Vikings is because it's so far you've had Sam Bradford behind center and Case Keenum, and both of them have performed exceptionally, minus the one tune-up game that they had against the Steelers. Outside of that, Case Keenum looks like he hasn't missed a beat behind Sam Bradford. Like you said, Stephon Diggs is almost a young Moss. He is playing lights out. Adam Thielen has come from nowhere to be good. Dalvin Cook is the next AP, the savior of Minnesota. And that defense is playing exactly like they played last year. Last year, the team started 5-0. And obviously, I know some Viking fans are going to hope that it doesn't repeat. But the defense stayed through the entire year last year. The one thing they gave out was that offensive line, which is playing exceptionally right now. Even when they went 5-0, that offensive line was not playing good. They just were winning they were overcoming that poor offensive line. They're not having that issue this year, and the Vikings could be a serious threat, and I cannot wait till they play the Packers. So, moving on to a topic that I have notes for, and I feel like this is going to be some real serious debate here. We're moving on to the NBA. Some happenings that have happened here. Carmelo Anthony traded from the New York Knicks to Oklahoma City for basically table scraps besides Enes Kanter. What does this do for Oklahoma City? What does this do for the New York Knicks? And what does this do for the West in general?
It honestly makes the Oklahoma City Thunder a lot more complicated than they need to be. You got three of probably the biggest ball hogs coming to one team. I have no idea how this experiment is going to work. To be honest, I was a little shocked that Melo's suddenly got traded to the Thunder, but it'll be interesting. I want to see how all these egos come together, or how they don't come together. It'll be a very interesting season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. If I was a Thunder fan, I would be cautiously optimistic.
I think the Knicks have made it clear that they want Kristaps Porzingis to be the face of the organization, and I'd have to disagree with you, Tom, on the fact that there's not enough ball to go around, because Paul George and Carmelo Anthony are both very, very capable spot-up shooters. Carmelo especially. That dude is probably the best shooter from the 2003 draft class, and one of the best shooters in the NBA when given the chance. The only issue that he's had over his career is defense. So I think OKC is going to really shine, but it is a very, very, very top to middle heavy Western Conference. If you take one of those top 4 teams and the Timberwolves over to the East, they would compete with LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, but it's not how it works. If only we could have an NCAA tournament type postseason, that'd be great.
I feel like it just makes the Western Conference just that much stronger, with all these moves going on. And I mean, I agree with Zach. I feel like the Knicks just kind of said, hey, we want this guy to be our face, essentially. And I don't feel like that with Melo going to OKC that there's going to be like 3 ball hogs, essentially. I feel like Russell Westbrook's going to have to dish the ball more because, Melo can score from anywhere, really. And then, Paul George, he can do his own thing, and get the reads. He could essentially be a Chris Bosh if he needed to. Just, he's just a better shooter, in my opinion. But that's all I have to say, really. I haven't really followed much up on it.
Man, I'm just excited Melo could play defense again. Defense in New York. Because why? That team sucked. Now he can play defense in the West against the best players to actually prove himself, prove his career. This is his shining moment. He has Paul George and Westbrook. So let's see this. Let's see if they could compete with Golden State, the Spurs. Melo, this is your chance to shine.
For me, this trade is good for Oklahoma City. It gives them something else that they can lean on and not rely on Westbrook to put a triple-double up every game. But the biggest problem that you're going to have with Oklahoma City is the same problem that the Wizards are going to have. It's the same problem that the Minnesota Timberwolves have had. It's the fact that you basically gave up your entire bench in order to get this big 3. Now, yes, the Miami Heat didn't really need a decent bench in order to win their championship, but they had LeBron James. And as good as you think Russell Westbrook or Paul George or even Carmelo Anthony are, they're not LeBron James. So while I do believe this makes a brand new number 2, I do believe this might put Oklahoma City above San Antonio in the West. The fact of the matter is, it still doesn't put them above Golden State. It still doesn't put them number 1. And it's still Golden State's lead. Anyone want to add to that before I move on?
I think this is going to be a very competitive West. I'm not sure anyone has the outright talent to dethrone the Warriors, but with some luck, I feel like there's a couple teams that could dethrone them. It'll be a more fun Western Conference to watch this year than last year.
I think the one thing, and I've said it a few times in this podcast, is that the Warriors are historically great at being healthy. It is amazing what a good bill of health can do for a team.
I just want to see the Warriors fall off. I don't want them to three-peat, essentially. I'll throw my little shade out there.
So moving on to the second NBA story I want to talk about. Dwayne Wade buys out his contract again with the Chicago Bulls. He pays back $8 million of his contract to leave the team. Where does he go? And what does this do to the Chicago Bulls?
The Bulls are left with nothing. Obviously, this sucks for them. But it's more. The story is more about where Wade is going to go after he's out of his contract now. Obviously, everyone wants to say he's going to go join LeBron. LeBron could use someone that he's used to playing with, especially this next year where it's going to be a very competitive season, and the Warriors are still the Warriors. That would be the obvious choice. The not so obvious choice I've been seeing whispers of is that he's actually going to join the Thunder, which I don't think is going to happen. I think he's going to be a Cavalier, but man, if he joins the Thunder, I don't even know what this. I can't even begin to even talk about that Thunder team and how much just how much weirdness is would be going on with that team if Wade does join them. But I think he's going to be a Cavalier.
Yeah, I think he's going to go to Cleveland. LeBron really needs, now that James Jones is retired, he really needs that guy that's been there with LeBron, that's been through all of the battles, not just winning a championship in Cleveland. He needs his wingman back. I mean, Dwayne Wade's not the same player he used to be. He's shown to be pretty effective the last 2 years for Chicago, but LeBron needs his buddy back, and I think if he gets Wade can come off the bench and lead that second unit. That'd be a great, great six-man to have.
I feel like D Wade, if he could, I feel like he would go back to Miami as a long shot. You know, I don't know if he would. I don't know if there's like any political stuff going on there. I feel like he could go back to Miami. You know, obviously he could join LeBron and his team. Other than that, I don't really know where else he could go. Maybe the Spurs. I don't know.
Chicago didn't really get much out of Wade, and now they had to buy him out. Wade and LeBron are good matchup, and I'm excited to see that. I hope the Alley Oop show is back. Dishes to LeBron for slam dunks. It'd be a beautiful scene if they sign.
I'm going to tell you one team that's probably really upset right now, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers, because they're sitting with Brooklyn's number 1 pick, and I don't think they're going to get the number 1 pick anymore. When they traded Jimmy Butler, they got table scraps. Then they basically, they cut Dwayne Wade. The Chicago Bulls are left with nothing. They don't have a leader. They don't have any real top talent on that team. I can't see them coming out of 15th place in the East. Maybe 14th because Brooklyn's not good either, but this really hurts the Bulls bad. I don't think they make the playoffs next year at all. And the only thing that might save them is the rest of the East sucks as well. But this hurts the Bulls. As far as where Wade goes, Cavaliers are clearly the favorite. He wants to go play with LeBron. As long as the money is right, which I don't think he really wants that big of a contract anyway. Cleveland will sign him. Oklahoma City is obviously an enticing option now because Dwayne Wade wants to play with LeBron, but Dwayne Wade also wants to win a championship. And I don't know if Dwayne Wade really adds a lot except for a solid six-man, but the Cavaliers have had one before and they couldn't beat Golden State. If you put Dwayne Wade on Oklahoma City, I think that might be the last piece that OKC needs to really be competitive against Golden State, because now they've got the star power to do it. Older star power, but they've got the star power. San Antonio's an enticing conversation piece. Maybe Houston, but I don't know if Houston has enough for him. But Cavaliers are probably the number 1 target for him. Anyone else, anything to add on that before we move on to me, Tom, and Rob talking about baseball?
Go Wolves.
Okay, then.
God help any team that plays LeBron this year. His off-season workout videos are insane.
So moving on to the MLB. This will probably be just a me, Tom, and Rob show, since I know Zach and James don't do baseball very often. So, MLB postseason. This is the last week of the regular season, but pretty much all the races are over with. There really isn't a whole lot for anyone to play with. Let me get on here really quickly. I do want to give a real quick halftime report for the Cowboys-Cardinals game. It's currently 7-7, so maybe the Cowboys might not be done as much as we thought they were. So, pretty much all the races are pretty much done. Twins have a 4.5 game on LA. They've got that. Colorado only has a 2-game lead on Milwaukee. That could get interesting still. But assuming Colorado takes that spot, Colorado at Arizona, Minnesota at Yankees, who do y'all have in those 2 games?
Give me Minnesota and give me Arizona. And if the season, I'm going off of the if the season ended today, right now, I think Minnesota beats the New York Yankees. They move on. They lose to Cleveland. Give me the Astros over the Sox in the American League, and then give me the Indians beating the Astros in the ALCS. And then in the NL side of things, Arizona is going to beat Colorado. Arizona is going to beat the Dodgers. And Washington is going to beat the Cubs. And then Washington is going to beat the Diamondbacks. It's going to be Washington-Cleveland in the World Series. You heard it here first, folks.
All right. So, Boston versus Houston. I feel like the Astros will take that. So the Twins versus the Yanks. I feel like the Yanks will take that. So then they would play the Indians. I feel like the Indians will again make it all the way to the World Series. So therefore they would beat the Astros to be the AL team. And then for NL, I feel like the Cubs, sorry Tom, are going to beat the Nats. And it's no disrespect toward the Nats. I just feel like the Cubs are just a better team. And I mean, who knows? Maybe the Nats can, do something when Bryce Harper comes back, just get the rejuvenation of their, I guess, face of the team, or however you want to put him in that light. For the Rockies and the Diamondbacks, I feel like the Rockies are going to lose. So I feel like the Diamondbacks obviously just are a far better team than the Rockies. And then I feel like the Dodgers are just, regardless of their, I guess, turmoil they've been in, or however many games they've lost the past, like 20, 25, I feel like, they'll still end up in the conference championship for the NL. But I do feel like the Cubs will just go back. So I feel like it will be a repeat. I think is what I'm saying. Again, I don't know, man. The Indians and the Cubs are just two phenomenal teams. They both have depth, both pitching, bullpen, and they can just hit the long bomb for days.
So, for me, in the wild card games, when you look at the wild card games, you want to look at the aces. It's a one game. It's a 1 game in, and I feel like the Yankees have above and beyond a better ace in Severino than the Twins have. I'm not even 100% sure who the Twins ace really is. They just have a whole bunch of really good number twos. And when it comes to, if they make it past it in a best of 3, maybe they have it, because like I said, they have 3 dominant number twos, but no dominant number 1. I think the Yankees are going to win that game, but I feel like the Yankees are going to get swept by Cleveland. Just because I feel like Cleveland has 3 number 1s. The same concept. In the NL, Arizona is a force to be reckoned with in this postseason. It's not how you start, it's how you finish in baseball. And Arizona has been absolutely dominant this past month. They've been dominant. Meanwhile, the Dodgers have been absolutely scuffling in the past month. I'll be honest. I agree with Tom. I think the Arizona Diamondbacks will beat the Dodgers in 5. They'll take it to 5. But Clayton Kershaw sucks in the postseason. If he does not get it together, the Dodgers will never get out of the first round. He has got to figure it out. They're gonna stall out. I can't see him getting past Arizona because Zach Greinke is just too good. Meanwhile, you have the Washington Nationals against the Chicago Cubs. I disagree with you, Rob. I think this is by far the best team the Nationals have had ever, from top to bottom. Gio Gonzalez is having the best year of his career. Scherzer is Max Scherzer. Steven Strasburg is having a great rebound campaign. He's fully healthy going into the postseason for the first time in his career. The offense from 1 through 6 is ungodly. It's the best in the National League. You can quote me on that one. Trey Turner's on second base if he gets an in-ground hit. He's going to steal second. Bryce Harper, if he can come back and he can go off like I think he will and like he was when he was healthy, watch out, because they've got 4 people on number 3, 4, 5, and 6 who can take you deep in any ballpark. The Nationals are going to win their first playoff series. They're going to beat the Chicago Cubs. Now, Nationals versus Arizona, this one's a coin flip for me, because I feel like it is a team that is outperforming expectations and a Nationals team that really has never met their expectations when it comes to postseason. I think the Nationals are going to get the edge. I think the Nationals are playing in the World Series. And the American League side, like I said, Cleveland's above and beyond the better team, but I would love to see a Cleveland and Houston series in the ALCS because Houston is another team that is completely outperforming expectations. I thought Houston was at least another year before playing at this level. 95 wins with 6 left to go. They could easily hit 100 because of just how good that team is. But like I said before, Cleveland has 3 number ones, and it's hard to beat 3 number ones in a best of 5 in a 7-game series. If they can get a couple hits on Kluber, because Kluber has had a couple of games where he hasn't been great, but Kluber's probably going to win the Cy Young. I can't see another team outside of Cleveland coming out of the American League when it's all said and done. I do believe it's going to be Cleveland against the Nationals, and that's going to be a hell of a series. But sorry, Tom, I don't think the Nationals are going to win the World Series. Getting to the World Series is going to be a huge accomplishment for the franchise, but I do believe that Cleveland is going to end the now longest drought in the MLB, because it was the Chicago Cubs. When the Chicago Cubs beat the Indians, they took their spot as the longest drought as far as World Series championships go. I think they end the drought this year. I think Cleveland wins the World Series.
I didn't get to make my World Series pick. I think it's definitely going to go to 7 games between the Indians and the Nationals. I want to say the Nationals will pull out the Game 7. The Indians are a very, very good team. It really depends on who the starters are in that Game 7. Yeah, I don't know. Being a fan, I'm going to go ahead and say the Nationals are going to win it 4-3. But I don't know. The heart says Nationals 4-3. The head says Indians 4-3. It's going to be a really fantastic World Series regardless.
So I'm just going to add a little side point for the Nats. Gio Gonzalez, like you said, he's having a pretty good year, if not phenomenal, however you want to look at it. I feel like he might be the deciding factor for the Nats, solely because he's been so up and down over the years, and obviously he just needs to keep being the Gio Gonzalez of 2016, 2017 compared to the, I don't know, when was he on the team? 2011 to 2000, well, now, obviously. He just needs to keep the ball in his court and just keep it going.
Well, that just about wraps up all the topics that I had picked for this week. Really great stream, guys. Just want to give a really good thank you for Rob being on the podcast with us today. Before we leave, want to do what we did last week in terms of giving our primetime picks for football. Obviously, we're not sure how tonight's game's going to go. Right now, it's still 7-7 with 11:41 left in the third, so not sure how that game's going to go. But so far, I think James is the only one that picked the Redskins to win. I'm pretty sure I picked most of the other ones right. Have to go back and check again. But starting with this Thursday Night Football, we have the Bears at the Packers. Packers are a 7 games favorite. Who you guys got?
All right, starting with the Thursday night game, it's a divisional matchup between Chicago and Green Bay. It's in Lambeau. I got to go with the Packers on this one. Chicago will make it more competitive than the experts think. I'm going to go with Green Bay, though.
Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers at home.
Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Alrighty. Do you want to do the London game too, or skip that one?
Skip it.
Alright, yeah. Who cares?
Zach hates London.
Zach hates London games. Alright, so Sunday
Forget
night.
football and football areas.
So Sunday night we have the Colts at the Seahawks. Seahawks are currently, oh Jesus, a 13-point favorite at home against the Colts. Who you got?
Seattle wins.
Seattle in a huge bounce back game.
Seattle by far.
I'm going to go with upset pick with the Colts.
I'm going to go the Seahawks just because the Colts are absolutely horrendous. But they ain't going to win by 13, that's for sure. All right, so moving on to Monday Night Football. We have the Washington Redskins coming off of a dominant Sunday night performance against the Oakland Raiders, going up against the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Kansas City currently a 7-point favorite. Who you got?
Now, hear me out here. The last 2 weeks, I picked against the Redskins, and the Redskins showed up and beat 2 very tough opponents, one on the road. So I'm going to go with Kansas City. In the back of my head, I'm going to hope the Redskins win.
Kansas City early.
I agree with Tom. I want the Redskins to win, but the Redskins have a history of horrible Monday night game records, and the Chiefs are just going to blow them out.
So, I think the Chiefs are going to get banged up. And I think the Redskins are going to pull off the upset on the road.
So hear me out, Tom. And Rob. The Redskins suck on Monday nights, yes. But usually at home. I'll be honest, and maybe this is the confidence overflowing from last game, but I think the Redskins knock off another undefeated team here, and I do believe... Now, I don't think we're going to dominate them like we dominated Oakland, but no one thought we were going to dominate Oakland either. I think the Redskins are going to win a thriller this time, but I do believe the Redskins are going to beat the Chiefs. So, because we do these podcasts every 2 weeks, we're also going to do Week 5. Starting off, Thursday Night Football, Patriots at the Buccaneers. Who you got?
The Buccaneers' high-powered offense overpowers the Patriots' struggling defense. I'm going to go with the Bucs. Close game.
If the Bucs hadn't lost 6 starters in the first 3 weeks of the season, I'd be going with them. But Brady will find a way to pick apart those rookies.
I got the Patriots.
I'm going to have to go with the Bucs.
Alrighty, of course you have the Patriots, James. It doesn't surprise me one bit. Sunday Night Football. God, the Chiefs have another primetime game playing at the Texans. Sunday Night Football. Chiefs-Texans. Who you got?
Chiefs stay undefeated. Chiefs win this game.
Chiefs by a landslide, man. Dominance is going to dominate.
The Chiefs, Alex Smith is going to do things greatly.
And did y'all see that game against the Patriots? Clowney's going off. Poor Alex Smith is about to go down.
So I just realized I forgot to pick my pick for the Thursday night game. So I am actually going to go with the Buccaneers against the Patriots. Like they said, I'm just not convinced the Patriots are as good as they once were. As far as Sunday night, Chiefs are going to bounce back. They're going to be pissed off they lost to the Redskins. They're going to absolutely destroy the Texans. Monday Night Football, we have the Vikings at the Bears. At the Bears on ESPN. Monday Night Football, divisional matchup. Who you got?
Trap game for the Vikings. The Bears win this one by a field goal.
I got the Bears by 10.
Bears by a touchdown.
Dang, so many Bears. Let's go Vikings. Vikings by 17.
James with the hot takes tonight. I agree with him, though. I think the Vikings are going to absolutely dominate the Bears. I feel like the Bears got lucky. The only reason the Bears might have a chance is because it is at the Bears, and the last 2 opponents they've played there have been the Atlanta Falcons, who they almost beat, and the Steelers, who they did beat. But I believe the Vikings are going to end up bucking the trend, so to speak, and I think the Vikings are going to walk out of Soldier Field with a win. So that just about does it, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming, tuning in, listening. Thank you so much once again, Rob, for joining us. And any closing thoughts, you guys?
Thanks for having me on here.
With the basketball season coming up, I just want to say the Timberwolves are going to be in the top 5 in the West.
Can't wait for Duke basketball.
Man, Brandon Cooks is going to have over 20 touchdowns this season. I'm calling in now. Get that hot take. It's hot. Fresh off the grill.
James, we already did overreactions.
You know what, man? Capitals hockey comes back in a week.
Yes.
I'm excited for Capitals hockey. I know we're going to blow it when we get to the postseason. We do it every year, but I love watching the ride getting there. But you know what team I think is going to have a really good year? And that's the Washington Wizards. I'm so excited to see the development of Otto Porter. I'm so excited to see if John Wall and Bradley Beal can both stay healthy again. And with the East in complete shambles, the top spot is open for us. I'm excited for this basketball season.
Didn't the Capitals change their name to Disappointments, or is that...
No, we're saving that for next season when we blow it again. Don't worry, it's going to happen.
Okay, the Washington Disappointments.
Absolutely. I feel like all of our sports teams could be renamed that.
Wild fan, by the way.
Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Peace.